Are diesel trucks worth it? With all the complexities and the emission systems on these engines, a lot of people have steered away from diesel trucks. And here we have our 2020 450, and you have to really wonder, is this investment worth it now in 2022 or beyond, with the way the government's mandating on the DPF filters, the amount of complexity and the whole emission system, the engine. If you just look at the engine bay, it is so complicated. But we all want these trucks. They're extremely powerful. Even though they do have the emission system, you still are making 1,050 foot-pounds of torque and well over 400 horsepower. There's nothing that really compares to this. I just recently purchased a new 7.3 liter Godzilla V8, and it is a great truck. It tows really well. It tows just as good as the 6.7 Power Stroke. You know, at the end of the day, you can only go so fast with the trailer. And the weights that we pull with our dump trailer, we might be pulling, generally we're only going to be pulling 7 to 8,000 pounds, sometimes 9, 10,000. But even if we max out that trailer, that's overall 16,000 pounds. The 7.3 will do it just fine. Now the diesel, what I've noticed towing with this diesel compared to the 7.3 is it has the power to go a lot faster and do a lot more, but you can spin the wheels. Like, you literally, if it gets a little wet outside, those wheels the rear tires are going to spin. The amount of torque that these engines have, they will wear your tires out a lot quicker. I mean, it's 800 pounds heavier, so that's like having 800 pounds in your truck all the time. And you have all this torque, you're going to go through tires quicker than you will with the gas truck. That's another added cost. Now, that being said, it is like a sports car. Is it as fast as a Corvette? No, but at the end of the day, for what this thing can do for a pickup truck, for this amount of towing capacity, it is an incredibly fast truck. The torque is great to feel. I mean, it feels great to feel that 1,050 foot-pounds of torque behind you. It is just an amazing machine. Whereas the 7.3 or the 6.2, the 6.2 that we have back here, our 7.3 is in the shop, but the 6.2, it gets the job done. Don't get me wrong. It's a great engine. Feels good towing. You can pull some weight. You can pull the 16,000 if you need to. Not an issue. But compared to the 7.3, the 6.2, the 6.2 is just not as good. The 7.3 is a little bit better. It's not leaps and bounds better, but it's a good amount better. It's a good reason to avoid a diesel. That new 7.3 gas is a good reason to avoid a diesel. But why get a diesel? Aside from the added 0 to 60 or whatever, or if you're going to pass somebody while towing, why even get it? Well, there are some arguments for a diesel. Number one, pin weight. Regardless if you're in a 250 or 350 or whatever, single rear wheel, whatever, with the diesel you get more pin weight. You just do. With the 7.3, the hitch on my 7.3 says that it can hold 1,800 pounds on the hitch. Not bad. The hitch on my 450 says I can hold 2,400 pounds. Freaking awesome. But whenever you have the diesels, you have more hitch pin weight, and you have optional 3-inch hitch. On my 7.3 gas, I have a 2.5-inch receiver. I like having the 3-inch hitch. You get better hitches. You get better tongue weights. It's just a better design, in my opinion, to have the biggest one. Also, too, with the 3-inch hitch, I've noticed chains never have a problem getting on these. And with the 2.5-inch receivers, they use smaller holes, and you always have to have an added loop to get the chain to fit. So on my 7.3, I'm probably going to end up switching the hitch to a 3-inch hitch. It's just better, in my opinion. Now, with the diesel engine, you lose payload. But typically with the Fords, they return the payload to you in the form of just adding more payload. These trucks actually have a lot of room for payload. A lot of times they're trying to stay under. A lot of times they're trying to stay under 10,001 pounds. So that's a limiting factor. So if you need to stay under 10,001 pounds, a diesel could be out of the question. But typically Ford, when they have a diesel option, you have the diesel engine, they'll add that 800-pound difference right into the payload, so it's really not that big a deal. Or, sometimes even with the 350 max payload packages with the long beds, you can still have a decent payload. Some of the best in the industry with the Ford truck and the diesel engine. But with that said, the highest level payload that you really can get would be with the 7.3 liter gas V8 and like a 350 dually. But even a more practical truck for a lot of people is like a crew cab long bed. You can get a good payload with the long bed crew cab 7.3, and when you go that route, I do believe you get a 3-inch receiver from the factory. So that's something to think about. Good payload, 7.3, good engine. The fuel difference on the 7.3, unless you're over the road trucking, the diesel doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. But if you're a guy that does construction and your pin weights are very high, you need that extra pin weight. The reason a diesel has more pin weight, you got an extra 800 pounds up front over the front axle. So when this weight is cantilevered over the rear axle, it really lightens up your front end. But with the 800-pound diesel engine over that front axle, it tows better. It just has more of a ballast over the front wheels, so it tows better. So a diesel will tow better, not just more power, but it actually will tow better. So that is an argument for the diesel. Better fuel economy if you're putting in the miles. Now, the emissions, are they really that bad? Honestly, from my experience, I've been pretty lucky. But I will say this truck, this 450, had to go into the shop for a heater circuit. There's so much complexity with this truck, with this emission system. This truck had to go in. There's a lovely DPF. So the truck has a separate tank for DEF fluid, and there's a line that needs to have a heater. I don't understand exactly, but I know it threw a check engine light and it had to go into the dealer. That's downtime that you wouldn't have with a gas engine because you don't have all these extra components. We have a DEF tank, a bunch of heaters and lines, and this weird crusty fluid that it's just a nasty fluid. The DEF fluid, it leaves creep all over the place. It's just nasty. So you have that. You have this DPF. It's always getting full with soot, and then it has to do regens and things like that. So that's something to think about. It's not fun. There's really nothing good about soot and regens. I mean, there's nothing good to say about DPF. It doesn't do anything for you. So that's a reason to stay away from diesels. But at the end of the day, you want what you want, right? I mean, there's Corvettes, there's high performance cars, there's all kinds of stuff like that. We don't need Corvettes. What's the point of a Corvette? It does nothing. What's the point of a Camaro? It does nothing. And if you want to have something cool like a F450, at least it does something. At least it does something. So is it the most optimal thing if you want to think purely on needs? No, it has a lot more than you really need. But low key, it's a really good work truck, the 450. It's got a 430 gear ratio. It's got a limited slip rear end. When this thing is in the snow and it wants to kick out, it really does a controlled slide in snow and ice. It's very interesting when you see like a F450 going sideways. I've seen a video of that on Facebook, and it makes a lot of sense. You can do that. You can kick out the rear and it just straightens out. A limited slip standard on the 450. Limited slips are way better than this electric locker that they have, and you kind of turn it on when you need it once you've already got stuck. The limited slip just does it on its own. It's a beautiful system. I love the limited slip on the 450. The commercial tires, a lot of people complain about the commercial tires. Me personally, I think they're good. They don't really have any issues in the snow when the truck is heavy. If the truck isn't heavy, then maybe they could have poor performance. But when there's salt in the truck and a plow on the truck and all that, these tires hook up pretty good in snow and ice. I haven't had any issues. So are the diesels worth it? I mean, they're fun. They are definitely more fun. Now, the 7.3 is going to be interesting because that truck in itself might be just as much fun as the diesel. There's so much you can do to the 7.3 Godzilla, which I wish it was here now. But there's so much you can do to that truck, exhaust systems, things like that. My 7.3 does have dual alternator. It's a good truck. It's a nice truck. But can you justify a diesel? Well, if people can justify Corvettes and Camaros and Mustangs and all that stuff, that really, what's the point? I mean, it's a car you cannot drive in the winter, like a ZL1 or a Shelby GT 350. You can't drive that all the time. Like if it rains, you can't drive it. At least you can freaking drive this thing all the time, and it kind of has the same effect as like a high performance sports car. Like it really is a head turner. It really is a very cool truck. So I do enjoy it for now. We'll see what happens. I am kind of leaning to parting ways with the 250, as it's been out there in my possession for a while. I am about ready to let her go. I think I'm going to go ahead and pull the label off of it, pull the badging or the company lettering off of it, and get serious about moving this truck. But anyway, my name is Sean. Our diesel's worth it. I think there's a couple small little points that you could make to justify a diesel. But anyway, my name is Sean. This is DS Trucks. See you in the next video. Over and out.